it's like, who's to say that in 20 years the whole notion of coming up with a new concept, it's just like, wow, we don't do that anymore. We just do a prompt now and it spits 50 ideas out. When your new skill is choosing the least shit one out of AI is going to be useful for taking a concept that is amazing and just, rehash that for 40 different channels, because that's the world we're living in now, isn't it? It's got to be on YouTube, it's got to be here, it's got to be on Instagram, you've got to have a billboard ad.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Want to attract and convert more leads? Want to learn how digital PR, branding, and SEO can establish and build your brand identity? Welcome to the Market Movers Building Brands and Links with Linkify podcast. We answer these questions and help you ramp up your brand visibility and credibility. Let's cut through the noise and make your business the talk of the town. We're your hosts, Nick and Chris. Let's get this show on the road.
Welcome to the Market Movers podcast. Today, I am really excited to be joined by Dave Harland, a legendary copywriter and the creative director over at Copy and Die, and one of LinkedIn's most entertaining voices. Welcome to the show, Dave.
Thanks so much for having me. It's actually copy or die, like crucial little things. Not
Right.
like if it's copy and die, like there's nothing down for any of us. It's like you get good copy or you're as good as doomed. Like
One or the other.
Yeah. Sorry, that's going to happen though. Like it's our fault to call it a copy or die. It gets called copy and die loads of times. So
I've got it written in front of me as well. It's my poor attention to looking
it's
at
all right,
copy.
mate.
That's
It's all right.
problem.
It's all right. No worries.
Well, Dave, thanks for coming on. We saw you talk in Ibiza. It was one of my favorite talks, definitely one of the most entertaining. So it's awesome to have you on to talk about copywriting, which I think is a very interesting topic right now with AI. So to kick things off, why don't you just tell us a bit about yourself and how you got into copywriting?
Sure. Okay. So I'm currently an agency co-founder. So I run a copywriting agency called Copy or Die.
Good name.
So we've been going about 18 months, and we effectively help brands bring out the real personality that's in their business. So we help them with tone of voice, website copy, and any promotional stuff like ads, campaigns, things like that. Prior to that, I was freelance for 8 years. I'm still kind of freelance consultancy. So I work with I do speaking gigs and stuff, and where I talk about copy and humor. And I also work one-on-one with brands, helping them bring out more of the humor side of things, which is what I've specialized in. I've been doing the freelancer for 8 years. Prior to that, I was head of copy in-house for the company for 10 years. And before that, I did journalism. So I did a journalism degree, but only really did the journalism job for about 6 months and then kind of fell into copywriting, which is more about writing to persuade. So that's my little whistle-stop tour into what I'm doing now.
And what inspired the move to go at it alone then with the agency?
With the freelancing or since like the last 18 months, the agency.
Yeah, the last 18 months, yeah.
Yeah, I'd got to the point where it was kind of a bit of a fluke. Like my co-founder Ben, who I run it with, he interviewed me. He was doing a blog series asking people how they run their freelance businesses. So even though he's a copywriter himself, he's been running a window cleaning business for the last 15 years, commercial window cleaning business. So he's really interested in the operations side and wanted to know more about kind of how I ran things, just because that's what he was interested in. And one of the key questions he asked was, if I was to start again, going it alone, running my freelance business, what would I do different? And I said I'd find ways to bring more people in to help me, because my writing voice is quite distinctive. And when I write for brands, I help them bring out humor, and there's quite a few people who specialize in that. So if I was to start again, I would be bringing people in who could help me. So it's not just me, because I was at the point before I started the agency where I was having to kind of say no to 19 out of 20 jobs just because it's just me. And it was, what did they say? One arse for one horse, they say up here. So there's only room for one person to do the job. And he was like, "Oh," he said, any of those leads that you can't take on, send them to me. I'll buy them off you." So that's what we did for about 9 months. And then after a while, we both just said, should we just cut out the middleman and formalize this and make an agency? So that's what we did. And yes, ever since then, we still haven't gone kind of completely all in. I'm still doing a few freelance bits and bobs. He's still running his window cleaning business, but within the next 18 months to 2 years, we both want to transition away and just purely be agency founders and agency owners and be running that. And yet we've already taken on another writer on a retainer to help us grow, because even at this early stage, there's a couple little bottlenecks around, like, dealing with the clients and what happens when a lead comes in. And we've got some processes, but yeah, they all need like sharpening up.
Yeah, then you have to start managing writers. That's we have a team of 12 writers, Chris, but yeah, our team's awesome. So
Well, at the moment,
can't say anything bad there.
our model is using freelance writers, because we've both been
Mhm.
freelance copywriters for like 8-9 years. We've got really good, strong networks of experienced people. So, and that's who we're only really using experienced people, who we know and trust can get the job done. The last thing we want to be doing is doing endless edits. I've done that in the past where I've outsourced stuff, and it's been like, oh, you get this stuff and you're like, oh, that's not good. I may as well have done it myself with a few of the jobs, which isn't great when um you've got writers who kind of aren't really on your level. But yeah, we use freelance, like sector specialists. So if a law firm comes to us, I know someone in Scotland who can write law copy and focuses on law copy, so we bring them in for that project and kind of build the team around each project, which is good. We've got that flexibility to do that. So no plans to hire just yet, but yeah, I'm sure we'll get to that. And yeah, like you say, managing the writers becomes the next bit. But even then, I'm creative. I still want to be, well, I'm creative director for the agency, so I still want to be focused on the creative stuff and that kind of day-to-day management. I'd hope we'd bring somebody in even to kind of manage, our team of writers when it comes to that.
That's awesome. But before we dive into the main questions, a point that you just made then was you've got a really distinct style. So I imagine that attracts a lot of leads. You then also mentioned how you've been utilizing freelancers, but you've just taken on your first main hire. I'm intrigued. How does that translate when you are approached by a prospective client that you take on that's been drawn in by your distinct style, and then have not fully doing that work yourself? Does that come from training the people that you work with, or does it go from the brief and then you checking it? Like, how do you maintain that style that would have attracted the customer in the first place?
Yeah, a bit of both. In terms of like when the client comes to me, we kind of take a really detailed brief. We do a discovery session with them where we find out exactly what it is they want and need and what's gonna get them noticed in the market. And then what we tend to do is, if they haven't already got a defined tone of voice, we'll create a tone of voice for them, and we get the writers in on that at the start. So it's very rare that we'll have a brand come to us and go, oh, here's our tone of voice, it's perfect. Can you create some ads, in a fun way or something? That just kind of doesn't happen. Most of the time, we've got a problem, like our tone of voice isn't working or we haven't got one. So we'll start with that. So getting the writers in very early means that we're all collaborating on that in that early stage, so that when it comes to the actual writing, it's not just guesswork. It's just not just what I think, and it's not guesswork from what the writers thinks. It's being a collaboration between our team and the client as well, where we do workshops with them and say, like, what are you actually like? What's your real personality in the business, and how do we draw that out? So by the time it comes to the actual writing, all of the thinking and the planning is kind of in place. And whoever is writing it, they're like, I'm 99% there in terms of what this brand sounds like. So it's quite rare at that stage where one of the writers, even like, once the tone of voice guidelines are in place, we'd want them to be kind of that watertight that we could hand them over to a writer who probably wasn't in on those early stages. They'd be that well defined. It's like, this is what you sound like, this is what you don't sound like. There's loads of examples before and after. This is exactly how to write it. So essentially it's giving them as much guidance as we can. It's very rarely kind of just guesswork or, oh, create what you think these days. Obviously, when it comes to creative copy and coming up with headlines, there's loads of creativity involved. But when it's when you're talking like a brand voice and writing our about page in a certain voice, it's kind of got to adhere to them brand guidelines, or that consistency is gone from from what you're trying to achieve, really, which kind of defeats the object of having tone of voice.
I imagine too, like if what comes back to them is good copy, they're going to be happy. They're not going to be like, "Well, this joke doesn't look like it was written by Dave. Like this is somebody else's humor." Like if it comes back,
Yeah,
it's good copy, then I'm sure they're happy, right?
exactly. And most of the time, it's not even like, do they like it? Like they're trusting us to write stuff. Like we're not. I've done that, made that mistake in the past. I've written stuff, presented it to them. Oh, do you like it? It's like I did it once, and a client came back and said, I said to the client, yeah, have a read through that. Come back next week if if you want any amends. And he said, how am I meant to know what amends? He said, you're the expert here. You should be telling me. And that was the moment where I was like, I'm not just a supplier of words. I'm a consultant for them here, so I changed my direction. I was lucky that was quite early on in my freelancing. So ever since then, it's been like, look, this is what we recommend to be the most effective thing for you. So it's very rare that now and again there's subjective stuff. So they'll say, oh, I just don't like that, or that's not a word or phrase that we'd use. Even last week, I used the word faff, like don't faff about. It's a very British way of saying like don't mess about. And because their audience is quite highbrow professionals, they were like, this just makes us look a little bit too casual. So just as little, we do like tone parameters from like serious to funny, casual to formal, and it's yeah, on this particular one, I've gone a little bit too casual. So we can spot them early on, but in the main, like it's rare that we'll get a joke completely wrong. I'm not going to be telling like Frankie Boyle style jokes if I know the audience
That's
is
a shame.
into Peter Kay.
Yeah.
It's never that chalk and cheese. It's always quite nuanced, and the client normally can just spot it because it's their brand normally, and they know it best. We can only really make recommendations.
I think that's so interesting, and I also think as well it's probably a part of the of copywriting that a lot of people, and certainly me as well, wouldn't have thought of how much comes before actually just writing, let's say, an about page. Like I imagine many brands, us included, probably haven't taken anywhere near enough time to think about like tone of voice and guidelines. In fact, me and Nick just the other day or a few weeks ago, we released a podcast episode, and I'd decided on the title, and I'd spelt the last word YER. And Nick, as a Yank, said, nobody says that in America. It's YEAH. So we put this out. Our audience is primarily US, so I'd ballsed up. But we hadn't looked at I hadn't looked at our forward-facing, how we should be positioning the copy that we use. So I imagine that is something that a lot of people don't even know about is the starting point of this.
I didn't even know that was a British thing. I just thought you couldn't spell well. I just thought that was like a you thing.
To be honest, I've never heard of YER. Like I've heard of like
maybe it is.
And I've heard if I say it's YEAH.
Okay, maybe it was just a spelling balls up.
Yeah. Don't know where you're getting your spelling from there.
Okay, so let's just dive in then to that preliminary part of the discussion with the client in order to determine that tone of voice. Like, what does that look like? How does that journey look? Is that something you need to tease out of them and draw out of them, or most people are quite willing to open up and understand the process?
Yeah, some of them have never heard of tone of voice. So in that sense, we have to really do a load of hand holding and explain what tone of voice is and say, you might have heard it called, verbal architecture or, verbal identity and stuff. It's all essentially boils down to that. We try and uncomplicate as much of the stuff as we can. It's basically not about what you say, and it's how you say it. And everyone has everyone has a voice that is just their normal voice, but then you have tones within your voice which you dial up and down for in certain scenarios or for different audiences. Like I might swear in front of my friends, I wouldn't swear in front of my in-laws. So they're my subtones. But my subtone might be a little bit sweary on occasion or amongst friends, and that's like I dial it up. But my overall voice is just how I would be, which is probably quite cheery, jokey. That never changes. So when we're working with clients, we'll establish exactly what tone of voice is at the start, and then in terms of how we draw that out, we have a couple of workshops that we do with them where we pinpoint the nuances of their tone. So we start off with like a tarot card style thing where we have like 99 different words on tarot card and say just pick the 20 that feel most like your brand and how you want to sound. So they'll whittle it away, and that kind of gives us an idea. We normally end up with a nice little suite of words, which will allow us to then go away and create what we think is the best kind of tone of voice. We stick them in groups. Oh, they picked authentic, genuine, and tell it like it is. So that might be like we keep it real, like we're really honest. We use everyday words, that type of stuff. So we've normally got an idea of where to take things then. And then yet other times clients, they already know. They give us the words and they're like, yeah, we are this, and this. We just need some guidelines because none of our writers know how to write in that way. So we'll essentially take those words and do exactly the same process, put the guidelines together, which is just, yeah, this is your overall voice. These are the 3 subtones. This is how you dial them up and down in different scenarios, like your more casual ones that might only be in social media posts or emails to existing customers. You might be a little bit more matey with them, whereas you've got to be a little bit more straight laced, a bit more formal if it's the first email to a brand new customer, because you want them to know you're not there, you're not messing around, you're there to be taken serious. And then, yeah, by the end of it, they've got these nice workable, practical guidelines, which have exactly who they are, exactly what they sound like, exactly where to dial up and dial those down, and loads of examples. Like your tone of voice, it lives or dies on the examples. If you give them as many examples as you can, which says, yeah, this is what not to do, this is what to do. Here are some kind of words, ownable phrases that you might want to drop in. It gives whoever's writing about the brand a nice decent steer on where to take things in future. So they're very rarely left like, oh, we don't know where to go. It's a good enough little kind of guidebook as to help them write.
So how can people do this on their own then? Let's say they're trying to figure out their brand voice. They want to, give ChatGPT their brand voice and tell them to write some content. Maybe not that route, but how would you suggest that people actually, figure out the way they want to sound to their audience?
Yeah, definitely stay away from the chatbots. The chatbots aren't gonna help you, even if you know your voice. Like it's just, yeah, stay away from that. We can get onto that in a bit, but yeah. So what was the question? How do you know your voice, or how do you know your audience?
How do you build out your brand guidelines? I think for a lot of like early stage companies, that can be quite challenging. You haven't really established that. You're trying to figure out, what you stand for, where you stand in the market. How do you maybe you have that sort of internally, but how do you actually, find that brand voice?
One of the easiest ways is to pin it to an actual person. Yeah, before you even begin, if you've got an idea of someone like a celebrity or a public figure, or might be someone in your family, it's just like let's kind of use them as the voice. Like a few in the past, like Sky Atlantic. When Sky Atlantic launched, they had all the US box sets like Mad Men and Lost and all of that type of stuff, and they based their whole tone of voice on what's his name, the lead character in Mad Men.
Oh, yeah.
John Hamm. I don't know it, but he's quite
Can't remember.
suave, sophisticated. He has a certain vernacular and vocabulary, so when he speaks, it's very, it says few words, but they're very well thought, and they based their entire voice on that. I did one recently, which was based on Iron Man. We want to sound like Iron Man, Tony Stark. But I was like, but when I spoke to them, they were like a competitions website, but they give back to charity. So for every like 5, they do car competitions. For every say 5 cars they give away, they give what a used car to like a charity that needs a set of wheels to drive around. So they're actually doing good. Most of these car competitions, they're just in it for the money. They're just profiteers. So there's a little bit of heart behind that. So when I was doing the voice, they were like, oh yeah, they had a branding expert working with them who advised do this, base it on Tony Hart, and I was like, yeah, Tony Stark.
Tony
said,
Hart's
yeah,
a
but
different guy.
Tony Hart does. He's an artist, isn't he?
Yeah.
He's dead now, isn't he? Morph. He created Morph, didn't he?
Did.
Yeah, God love him. So this was yeah, that was a Freudian slip because I'm about to say the Hart bit. I said he's not just Tony Hart. Tony Hart. He's not just Tony Stark, because Tony Stark can be a bit of a dickhead, can't he? Like when you're watching him, he's like this playboy. Like he's quite sharp-witted, but he can be a bit of a tool. But so when I was creating the voice, I was like, if you give him back to charity, you need a little bit of heart. It was like you need Tony Stark with a bit of heart. There we go. I got it
There
out.
we go.
So it was Tony Stark with a little bit of compassion, a little bit of warmth. So he's not just all about these quick-witted comebacks, which a lot of the lines I ended up writing for the brand, they were like nice and kind of sharp and quick-witted, but there was a real heart behind it. So that's all I'd say. Yeah, try and if you haven't got a clue where to begin, try and pin it to a real person that already exists and just kind of retrofit it backwards and just think like, how would you describe them? Just get all of that down, write all of those words, and effectively all you're doing, you're starting with a kind of person in mind and then creating of those words. Our toolkit, what we use, we start with the words first and get the client to choose the words. So if you're doing it yourself, it's probably quite hard to do that unless you want to write down 100 words on a table and go, oh, what's this, what's that, and it's kind of a moot exercise. Whereas if you start with a person first, it's just a little bit easier to get your head and start writing like them, and you can kind of cross-check everything as well. So when you're writing stuff, you going, oh, would he? Is that something he would actually say? Like, would he sound like that? Like I'm doing one recently for another brand. And there's like a TV physicist called Brian Cox. He used to be in a band called D-Ream, and he's a like absolute like genius in terms of how much he knows. He's a professor of physics, and he knows all about the astronomy and stuff. But he talks about stuff in a really grounded and relatable way. So they wanted to base their voice on that, and yeah, I've had all sorts. Oh, we want to sound like this. I'm like, okay, sound. Let's go back and have a listen to them. And like for the Tony Stark one, it was like going on IMDb and pulling out a load of quotes. I watched Iron Man 1, 2, and 3 across a weekend, just having a little think about, oh, what's he saying there? And like, how's he saying that? Like, he pauses quite a bit before he says stuff. That's him thinking. So straight away in the tone of voice, I'm saying, think before you speak. So there's those little clues which you can stick in. Which if you're not used to it, it's hard. Like I wouldn't say anyone could just go, yeah, we can create our tone of voice guidelines. Like even for me, been a copywriter for donkey's years. Like I come at every new turn of voice. It's like it's one of the toughest challenges we do because it's like we've got to create something for the brand here out of nothing and make them sound like nobody else in their market, but also speak to everybody who's going to be buying from them. It's like where'd you begin with that stuff? So it's an acquired skill which takes some time to do.
Yeah, there's so much to it. Dave, for the smaller businesses out there, or the businesses that have yet to even have any consideration or foresight into tone of voice, admittedly, I would say to an extent that's us as well. What are the dangers of never actually looking at this? It just, you throw copy together, you do a new landing page, email to your list, zero consideration of tone of voice. What are the long-term dangers of not taking that into consideration?
I think that there's two really. So the first is consistency. So if you're just writing it each time, okay, if it's just you writing it, you might be able to kind of write them in a similar vein, so they sound quite consistent. But the moment you say, yeah, John, you head of marketing, or the moment you bring a writer in and they say, what's the tone of voice, and you can't tell them. If you're just saying, oh, have a read of some previous stuff we've done, you're not going to end up with a consistent thing. And the worst thing for the brand is to sound inconsistent. Like I see it all the time. Most of the brands that come to us, they're so inconsistent in how they speak. Even now, I've been working on a tone of voice project today, looking at quite techie stuff like contact center solutions, looking at all the big brands out there. Like they might have these really nice headlines, but then it's full of buzzwords. The moment you get to the next one, now it's almost like two different people have written it, and you're like, what am I meant to be focusing on? Like it's all like higgledy-piggledy all over the website. So that lack of consistency for small businesses, if you don't have at least just the basics of like most brands have values, don't they, or some inkling of what their personality is. Even that's a good start, rather than just going, right, we're just going to start this. Just saying, just like the bare basic guidelines, like we're going to avoid jargon. That might be part of your tone of voice. We're gonna keep things short. Like some of these contact center websites I've been looking at, it's like the scroll bar goes down to the size of a little gnat because the pages are that long.
Yeah.
It's like, where do you even begin?
Yeah.
It's like, so their tone of voice clearly isn't defined as keep things simple. It's just like, if they've got tones of voice,
Mm.
it must just be like, say whatever you want and waffle, for the next 2
Waffle.
weeks, because all of the copy on those pages, it's like, yeah, hideous. So yeah, consistency is one. Um, and then the second one is like, when you do the tone of voice, you shouldn't really make it about you. A lot of brands think, oh yeah, I shouldn't base it on my customers. It's like the wrong way to do it. You should have your customers in mind, sure. And when you're writing ads, think of what your customers are searching for and what they might be saying, and use some of their words. But your tone of voice should be the real you. You should be your brand. You shouldn't be parroting your audience's words back. Imagine in real life if somebody just copied you. How annoying would that be? If there was like someone trying to clone you, you'd go like, get away from me, like, come up with your own style, stop copying ours. Effectively, if you're just trying to parrot stuff back to your customers, yeah, that can kind of be a bit of a pitfall as well. So I'd say they're the two things. Yeah, the first one is make sure or having tone always helps you be consistent, and the second one is base it on you rather than who your audience is, because you'll just be parroting back the same old kind of words, and it won't be distinctive at all.
All right, so now we have to talk about AI. I think most people would agree that like ChatGPT has made copywriting more important. At first everyone was like, "Wow, we can create this content. It's better than cheap writers." There was a lot of excitement around that, and then it became a sea of AI content. And I think people are starting to understand the importance of good copywriting. So I'm just curious, maybe what your thoughts are on the state of AI content.
Just absolutely horrendous. Just everything I've seen and every test I've ever done, from the type of stuff that I do and our agency does, which is real humanity first stuff. So stuff rooted in lived experience and really nuanced metaphors and analogies about things that I don't think any type of prompt could even get close to. Um, I've just seen it do the bare, like, it's good at explaining stuff. So if you do something like what I've been doing today, quite complex stuff and it's full of buzzwords, chucking that into a chatbot and saying, just simplify that for me, that might be the first step towards having copy that isn't so buzzwordy, but it's still just a rehash of what's already out there. That's the thing, you know. They're not creating anything new. They can't. They're not built that way. There's all of these, like, the fact that you can type, create me a poem about, a mouse in the style of Shakespeare, and it spits it back, is just like mind bending. Like, how it does it, I'll never be able to fathom it. But in terms of creating stuff for your brand, which, again, back to what I was saying, like, if you've got an actual, like, strategy and a tone of voice, like, even if you try and plug all of that stuff in, it's just rehashing kind of what already exists out there. So if you want mediocrity and you're not really that bothered, I'd say, and you just want space filler, yeah, like, fill your boots. It's probably going to be a lot quicker and a lot cheaper than paying a mediocre or a junior content writer to fill that space for you. But I think if you really want to take your brand seriously and come up with stuff that nobody else is doing, but B, really it really grabs people and makes people feel something, I don't think it can ever get there, because the way, yeah, the sheer experiences we've had is just, it gives us the advantage. Like, one of my good pals, Eddie Schleiner, always referenced this. Like, at the start, he typed in typed into ChatGPT, describe the moment you meet your firstborn, and it spat back, I was in the labor room, and it was a joyous occasion, and, like, it was horrendous. It was just describing stuff. It was 88 words, and then Eddie wrote it. Eddie's a copywriter, really good copywriter. He wrote his, and it made me cry. It was that good. And I was just, he took me into the room. It was full of dialogue and, like, unspoken moments, things you can only know if you understand, like, like human connection, and
Mhm.
being in those moments where like there's someone spoken bonds where words aren't even enough. It's just like the tiniest little descriptions of how he felt. It's just like it got me, and like I think if you've got the ability to do that, and if you try and replicate that like synthetically with one of these chatbots, I just don't think they can. And from what I do, humor, like I've tried to get it. I did a whole talk. I did a keynote speech on it last year about humor, and it gets it wrong. It can do like shit puns, like really bad puns, but it just and clumsy metaphors. But it's just like having an annoying junior who doesn't understand anything about your industry, like going coming up with suggestions.
Mm.
It's like having someone who's like like when you're like 15 and you go to your first disco and you really clumsily trying to speak to the guys or the girls there, and
Mm.
it's like that's the level it was getting it wrong. It was like saying things wrong. It was just horrendous. So the prompt I gave it, I had a story I'd written, um like a funny LinkedIn story, a bit of a parody one. I put the whole story in and said, show me how you'd make that funnier, and it came back with a load of improvements, but just again like terrible metaphors. I was like, no, keep it in the same style, just make it funnier. So again, reprompted it like 4 times, and then I then at the end, just like the icing on the cake, I went back and said, okay, explain why what you've written for each there was like 20 changes. Explain why what you've written is funnier than what I've written, just to see if it understands like how us humans comprehend humor. And for each one it was like, I'm sorry, I can't, like what you wrote was better. So it kind of backed down,
Yeah.
and it's just yeah, it was just weird. And I'm not doing it like trying to catch it out, like like I can write funnier stuff than a computer, because that would make me the idiot. I was doing it just purely to see, can this stuff be helpful? If you don't class yourself as funny, if you've not got a funny brand and you just want a load of shit puns, it can regurgitate a load of stuff and give you, if you run the story I wrote was about a time. I won't say it because it's disgusting. It was about the time I had a little accident, shall we say, on a school trip when I was a kid, and it was like I wrote it in the style of a LinkedIn business post with like a really earnest LinkedIn lesson at the end. And this horrendous thing happened when I went to a place called Jorvik Viking Centre in York. It was like a school trip to a Viking centre, and all of the changes, it wasn't ChatGPT, it was Claude. All the changes Claude made, it just shoved a load of Viking puns in. And I was like, you're missing the point. Like that's what I mean about it being clumsy. Like that story wasn't about Vikings, even though that was the location. Shoving a load of Viking puns didn't make it funnier. What made it funny was like some of the descriptions I went to about, like, my mum was one of the helpers, and she knew straight away when I waddled towards her like what had happened,
Mm.
and I was like describing like the unspoken bond between mother and son when that penny drops, and she knows, oh, like he's had a bad one there, and I've got to go and clean that up now. So yeah, all of the Viking puns and just terrible metaphors. It was just, yeah, it never came close. So if you like, in a nutshell, I know I've waffled on a little bit there, but if you want to take it seriously and have really a copy that's kind of draped in humanity and oozing lived experience, if you can't fast track it. Essentially, it's just all one big fast track, isn't it? It's the ex crypto bros who've tried it with NFTs. They've probably been, tried the online poker world. They're just trying to get rich quick now. Like, I know AI is the biggest thing, and now everyone's plowing all of their money in there. But in the main, 99% of the stuff that's out there, and all the spot, like, as soon as you look in your spam folder, what the latest gimmick is. Like,
Yeah.
everything is just AI bullshit now, and it's just
Mm.
like, where do you even begin?
Mm.
And finding the smart people who are talking about it is quite hard. I try and cling to them as often as I can, the ones who are talking, talking sensible stuff about it. Like Rory. Rory was in Ibiza with us, wasn't he? He did the keynote speech before me, and one of the things he says is exactly what I said about that fast tracking. Like, what the benefit isn't in getting to the solution dead quick. The benefit is in how you get there. You learn so many things on along the journey, like going to university. You don't just go to university to go, oh, there's the certificate. You learn so many things between year 1 and year 3, not just educationally, but you learn how to fry an egg. You learn how to fall in love. You learn how to deal with breakups. You know what I mean? You learn how to all of these really kind of things that you can't describe. And I think that's one of the pitfalls. Fast tracking everything to what you perceive to be the solution isn't necessarily the right way to go about it. Even though it's probably going to save the company that you're working for a shit ton of money because it thinks that it's an easy replacement. And of course, in copywriting circles, like, very few people know what good copy is, and unless you test it and see whether it's effective or not. Like, you might read it and go, oh, that sounds good. It's like, it's as good as what I was saying before about when I present stuff and the client going, oh, I don't like that. And I'm like, I don't care if you don't like it. I've written it because it's effective. It's going to work with your audience. So there's that nuance as well. So yeah, that's where I kind of come at it from. I sound a bit moany, don't I? And a bit ranty.
No.
I'm a little bit protective because I also love what I do, and there's that as well. Like, there's an element. I'm chatting to another tone of voice specialist I know called Nick Parker. We have like, I've called it dignity, but they're like little micro dignities. Like, in the past, like, we used to get a physical map out, didn't we, in our car and go, right, we've got to get from here to there. And when you reach that destination, you were like, fucking use that map to get there. Like, yes, get in there. Now it's like, take the next left. It's like, we don't even realize it's happening. Those little dignity moments where you're like, yeah, I've done that. It's like, if I'd have used a chatbot to any part of that story that I wrote about the accident I had, which I posted on LinkedIn, it, like, I read it out to my mum. She was crying with laughter. If I hadn't have written that, I couldn't look my mum in the eye and go, oh, like, that was all me, that. Like, and there's those little bits of dignity as well. And I think if you're not a writer, it's hard to understand that. Like, I'm not a designer, so I could quite easily, like, not that I would, I could quite easily just go into one of these new, Mid-Journey or whatever and go, oh, I need an image of a penguin doing a backflip off a canal boat and do it. And, like, if I really wanted to do it well, I'd get a designer to do it, or I'd get an illustrator to do it for me. But because I'm not a designer and I'm not really in that realm, I can understand why people are just going, just give me that. All I want is the output, and I don't know whether it's good or bad. I just need it. So I can kind of understand why non-writers are doing it. But as a writer, I can see right through it. It's just all it's a load of bullshit to me.
Well, I think it's made good writers in higher demand. If you're a mediocre writer, you're kind of out of business at this point, because I think AI can write content better than a good chunk of writers. But yeah, I think it's really just put excellent writers in much higher demand, because that's really what it's going to take to stand out now is very personable content that's clearly not AI produced.
I also.
And tone of voice as well, like linking it back to tone of voice. If your tone of voice is like nobody else out there, and you're writing stuff that nobody else can, because your tone of voice is so unique, like Liquid Death have done over the last few years, the way they've kind of cornered that, like, really tongue-in-cheek kind of, it's just water, but we're effectively like a rock band. It's just like, no one else can do that. No one else can replicate that. So the more you can kind of lean into your uniqueness and nuances as a brand, the less likely it is that anyone can take your place. And the same for writers. If writers know how to write really well and come up with tones of voice that can help brands stand out, I don't think there's like, at no point since it's come out have I gone, I'm going to retrain as someone renting parasols out on it. That's always my plan B. My plan B, if it ever goes like absolutely tits up and the chatbots know how to do tone of voice, I'm going to hire out a little patch of beach and rent some parasols out. That's going to be my job.
That sounds good.
That's a dream job.
That's not a bad backup plan, man.
Yeah, I'd love that.
I think it's really important to go back to what you said though as well about the actual purpose of the written content. So For example, we're deep into AI. It's got lots of benefits outside of copywriting, automations, research, collation of information from multiple sources put together. Can do a bunch of crazy cool stuff. We use it as well. I find a particular good use for us, especially if we're trying to send pitches or engage with the media. You can speak into a voice note with your own tone of voice, your own linguistic flurry, and then just do it without any regard for ums and ahs, and then just force the chatbots to maintain your exact linguistic style, tone of voice, and just like make the sentences actually work, and that that looks and reads almost as if you said it. So I think it's got some real good use cases. But what's interesting is the end result. And if someone is hiring a copywriter, they are hiring a copywriter for that copy to serve a purpose, convert, do something. So when I wrote my best man speech for my brother's wedding, I could have easily have used AI to help, and I didn't use it once. I agonized over every word, every sentence, every breath, every gap, because it was so important. And the end result was I wanted to deliver an amazing best man speech to my brother. So I can completely see that, and I think the copywriter's job will be there, forever.
Yeah. Well, you couldn't have looked back at any videos of you doing that speech in years to come and gone, I made up with myself there. I done myself proud. I mean, my family proud. There'd be something in the back of your mind going, like, you copped out there. You did the fast track, even if it made your life easier at the time.
Excellent.
Even if you were thinking, I'm in a dead end here. I'll use it as a last resort to get me out of a hole, and then it comes up with like some pun that you drop in, and no one laughs, and no one laughs at, and you're like, you'd have had to go. That was the chatbot. That wasn't.
Thanks a lot, Claude.
Yeah. Cheers, man. Yeah, funny.
So, Dave, what as we approach, this has been awesome, by the way. It's so fascinating. What do you see the future of copywriting look like in the era of AI? And do you think it's going to be something which is more difficult to sell to brands or emerging brands, that it's something that they need to invest in and be focused on for high quality copy? Or do you think everyone's just going to cop out and the bots are going to be selling us, talking to us, bots talking to a bot? It's just going to be a bot world. Where are we going?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, I've thought long and hard about it. I still do think that there's no replica for us weird and wonderful human brains from the brand tone of voice creation. So coming up with a brand tone of voice, what you then do with that, and try and plug it into these chatbots. If you think it's kind of spitting out as close to what you think is semi decent output, like you've just got to kind of test it, I suppose, and see how you get on. But I think from that real fundamental stuff. So at the very start of coming up with your voice, and also in campaigns, like coming up with the big idea, like coming up, like the ChatGPT would never have come up with like drink religiously. One of my good mates, copywriter Vicky Ross, she spotted Lucky Saint, came up with the headline. It's zero alcohol beer. Their headline was drink religiously. Like,
that's good.
It just no chatbot could come up with that. Real tight campaign lines, which are witty, which really grab you, stop you, and make you think. I think they're miles off. I don't think they would ever get there. So I think coming up with those ideas where you just kind of essentially taking two totally disparate things and kind of plasticine them together to create a really creative ad. I just don't think that it could ever get there, because that's what we're great at, and essentially we're great at kind of making those connections, and all they're doing is like looking back. It's all like retrofitting what's been done before. So I don't think they'd ever get there from like a conceptual point of view. And also just for sanity's sake, working on a job where you've poured over those, like I could spend 3 days sometimes coming up with a strap line, and by the time I've come up with that strap line, it's like the agony I've taken to get to it, and like the dead ends and the crossroads I've gone. Like, if you just endlessly going, give me 50 more ideas. Oh no, okay, give me 50 more straightforward ones. Give me this. It's like, what? How is that improving you as well as a person?
True.
Where's the personal development there? Plus, like I always say, it's tongue in cheek, But what happens if the Wi-Fi goes down? You're fucked. Like, what happens if the Wi-Fi goes down? And like at the moment, like I want writers who will come in to work with us so that I'm comfortable enough to be on a call with them. And when a client goes, "What do you think of this?" They don't have to go, "Oh, hang on a sec. Let me just put the prompt in and see what my answer should be," because that's effectively the more you rely on these things, the less your brain has to do. Like, I don't know anyone's phone number anymore. I don't know my wife's phone number. That's crazy, isn't it? Like 20 years ago, I knew my best friend's 20 home phone numbers. I knew them all.
Yeah.
I knew them all like that, like it was their surname. I don't need to anymore. It's like, who's to say that in 20 years, like the whole notion of coming up with a new concept, it's just like, wow, we don't do that anymore. What? That's like a baby's toy. You're crazy. We just do a prompt now and it spits 50 ideas out. When your new skill is choosing the least shit one out of all of them ideas, that's all we're going to be at.
Yeah.
And I never want to get there. I'd soon disappear. So to answer the question, really good conceptual stuff rooted in lived experience and really unique brand tone of voice. I think that's where I see those areas will be untouchable, and everything else, like I know exactly what you're saying about how AI is going to be useful for taking a concept that is amazing and just rehash that for 40 different channels, because that's the world we're living in now, isn't it? It's got to be on YouTube, it's got to be here, it's got to be on Instagram, you've got to have a billboard ad. It's like, don't give me any new suggestions in the copy I've written. Just reformat it and resize it so I don't have to do like the shit bits, the boring bits. That's going to take ages. Leave me with the actual fun bits to do.
Well, I think everyone wants to use AI, like you were just saying. They want to automate those processes that they don't enjoy. But I think people will always want to hear from humans. People don't want to hear from AI content. So I think unless that changes, which I don't know why it ever would, copywriting will always be important because people are always going to want to hear from actual humans.
Yeah, totally agree.
Dave, before we go, I want to put you on the spot now. One of the funniest things that you did in Ibiza was some of these copywriting faux pas from big brands. If you could end with just a couple of them, that would be fantastic. Take us out of the doom and gloom of how AI is going to just destroy us all.
Copywriting faux. Wow, what example did they give there? Wow, you have really put me on the spot.
Where brands got it wrong, I think you did some or you showed some photos and of just
give us your favorite
misstep.
screw up.
Yeah.
The total misstep.
I think you gave a website URL that was like a really rude word. They hadn't thought about the two words together for the domain name. I think that's quite a famous example.
Yeah, well, there was I don't even think it's a copywriting thing, but when Susan Boyle,
right,
when she launched her album, they came up with the name Susan Album Party. But the URL comes up as Sue's Anal Bum Party. So that's a particularly funny one. But yeah, I mean, I notice like howlers all the time. Like there was one, I did notice one the other day. I took my little boy to the museum in Liverpool near where I live. Coming back on the train, I know we just had these brand new sexy electric train. Like they were always electric, but now they're spacious. There's no weird little connecting bit in between the carriages. Loads more room. And as I got off the train, there was a poster from Merseyrail, who run our trains here. And the poster was just the new train, and then the headline was "Owned by You." That was the headline. So I wrote a tongue-in-cheek post. I wrote a tongue-in-cheek post on LinkedIn saying, "I'm not coming to work today. I've got great news. I now own a train."
Yeah.
So I then came up with all of the 5 or 6 new initiatives that I would be introducing on my train, which would involve increasing the fare dodging fine from £100 to £500, but also making the top 10 most creative excuses for fare dodging. Get you off with the fine. So I just kind of took that to the extreme in a silly way, like I quite enjoy doing, just because it keeps me sane. But just stuff like that, lazy, forgettable stuff where you see brands and they just and the stuff I've been reading today, just littered with jargon, just lazy. People don't care. It's just a box ticking exercise.
I pinged I pinged you one on LinkedIn, I think, after that I'd seen one, because once your eyes open, you start seeing them. I don't know if you can remember.
Honestly, they're
Yeah.
everywhere.
Yeah.
And like for years I've posted them and I've had a little bit of pushback, like, oh, someone like one of your peers wrote that, and I'm like, you joking? Like either a robot wrote it or someone who doesn't give a shit about copy, and I don't mind slamming either of them, because what I do, I care about what I do, and good stuff out there, it's been poured over and people have really thought about it, and the stuff like I'll go to bed sometimes with and I haven't cracked a brief, and it's just like, how am I going to do that? And I'm like in the middle of the night, just my wife's looking at me going, "What are you doing?" And I'm like doing little voice notes into the phone. Like connectedness. It's like coming up with just mad little word plays. So yeah. Loads of howlers. Yeah, I could write a book. I could do a course. I am actually doing a course at the moment called, I'm working on it, called, look at this, shameless plug. Always do a shameless plug. Yeah, I'm doing a course called Write the Funny. So it'll essentially be my first ever course, the video course, nice and practical, showing you a load of techniques that I've used with brands over the last 20 years to help them bring out the humor that exists within their business. So a lot of the stuff I spoke about, like self-deprecation and picking fights with other big brands and competitors and behaviors and whatnot. So loads of really, really useful tips and techniques. So you can get that on my website as well. So stick it in the show notes.
No, go on. We've come to the perfect point. If people want to find you, Dave, or the course, or they want to connect with you, brands, where can they go?
Absolute segue into it. Yeah. So if you want the course, it's my website at thewordman.co.uk/course. So there's a wait list. It's not finished yet. It's a wait list at the moment, so you can get your name on that. And if you get on the wait list, I'll give you a discount when it launches as well. A nice big chunky discount. So that's that. If you need help with tone of voice or website copy or campaigns, our agency is Copy or Die. So copyorDie.co.uk.
Copy and die.
Copy or die.
Copy or die.
Copy or die. Either get good copy or die trying. That's what it's about.
And LinkedIn.
LinkedIn, I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on there most days, sharing stuff, as you know. And I'm just my name, Dave.
Yeah, definitely follow him on LinkedIn. It's brilliant
nice
stuff.
One. I do a newsletter as well. You can get that at my website. So I do, tech tips and techniques and all of the usual stuff. But everyone's got a newsletter now, haven't they? The course is the main thing. Nice one.
All right, Dave. Thanks for coming on. It's been an awesome talk.
Yeah. Thanks so much. Cheers, Dave.
And that wraps up this episode of Market Movers, Building Brands and Links with Linkify. Big thanks to our parent company, Linkify, the wizards behind turning ambitious businesses into standout brands. Hit up our website at linkify.io and take the first steps towards brand greatness. Big shout out to Fame for making this podcast possible. Thanks for listening, folks. Stick around for more insights in our next episode. Catch you later.